I think it's only a matter of time until fiction actually becomes reality. Yep, is that the faith that all of us are destined to, as we're finding out now that the government has a whole lot of underground bunker, a whole constellation of underground cities and transportation hubs that are allegedly using free energy? What's in the world is going on here? Well, that's exactly what we are going to be discussing in this particular video, as we have a former member of the old Bush administration coming forward and dropping some major bombshells of what we've been hinting at and talking about for a very long time here on this independent media broadcast. And that is, I think we finally know where those secret black budgets are going to, as the conversation really needs to be done in hindsight with all of the very famous, prominent people that, of course, have bunkers, as you don't have any. As the conversation, I think, is worth having here and does explain some of the kind of more reckless geopolitical positions that the United States has previously placed itself in. Because when you're able to have a whole backup plan, when you have a whole cellar, when you have a whole bunker, when you have a whole underground city that you could just hide in, who cares about the plebs? That right there, I think, perfectly represents American foreign policy, which I want to deep dive in this particular video with the latest revelations from Catherine Austin Fitts, someone that, of course, I always have held in high regard, and we will be talking about in full detail in this particular video. As now, we have some very interesting geopolitical situations unfolding right now, as the United States is threatening bone-crushing sanctions on the Russians, as the Russians are coming out and saying that they are not too happy about the Ukrainian-American mineral deal that was just signed. Now, there's a lot of implications to this mineral deal. Some of them I don't think work out for the best for the United States. We'll get into the details of this deal here in a little bit, but I think it's fair to assume here, when it comes to our posturing against China and Russia, it has been a little wild within the last few years. And of course, now comes in former Bush administration official Catherine Austin Fitts, as she came out and just really dropped some major bombshells and truth bombs on the general public in her interview with Tucker Carlson that has left Tucker Carlson even stunned about the doomsday bunkers for elites. And there's a lot to talk about here, specifically when it comes to individuals like Mark Zuckerberg, Mount Weather, and all these other conspiracies that we've talked about beforehand that are now coming home to roost, that are now finally being verified here through these disclosures. And this is probably why Deutsche hasn't made a full kind of audit of the Pentagon. Now, a lot of people are saying Deutsche fell flat. Deutsche fell short of its goal, an initiative of getting rid of government waste. And there's a lot of government waste that they have already gotten rid of. But there's still a lot more, as the vast majority of our money is predominantly being spent not just on Medicaid, not just on Social Security, but at the Pentagon, at, quote, defense spending. There's also a lot of secret black budgets. There's also a lot of budgets that are just not accounted for, not explained. The Pentagon routinely just loses trillions of dollars. Oh, where did it go? We can't account for it. We can't tell you what's going on here. And now I think we're getting more insight into why Elon Musk has met a firewall at the Pentagon, as the Pentagon probably is working on secret underground constellation transportation free energy cities. Yep, you heard that correctly. And that is what Catherine Austin Fitts was talking about on the Tucker Carlson show in I think, the most interesting, fascinating ways that deserves our attention.
Ordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are a record of, some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. So,
in the United States?
In the United States, on all over the world. But from 2021 to 2023, I took one of the smartest subscribers in the Solari Report network, and he and I spent 2 years collecting all the data and all the allegations on underground bases. And then we systematically went through and tried to estimate our guess. This is totally a guess of how many underground bases, both underground in the United States, but also underground under the ocean around the United States. And our estimate was 170.
Yep, that's a lot. As of course, now we might understand why there's $21 trillion missing and never accounted for and never audited here. As of course, I remember hearing about this all the way back in the early 2000s when I was first kind of awakening to the alternative perspective of the world, as we found out things like Mount Weather from individuals like William Cooper that previously talked about how he talked to a lot of truck drivers and a lot of first-hand person accounts about individuals that are just literally discovering these huge cities that are there for a multiple amount of reasons. Now, the reasons are pretty fascinating. Before talking about those reasons why there's huge cities, Mount Weather is the more kind of public, open, underground and emergency operations center that, of course, now a lot of people know about. It's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's in Virginia, but there's a lot more, specifically around Colorado, specifically around the Denver airport, some people assume, and I think they assume correctly here, as when you're looking at specific locations that would survive natural, human, and intergalactic disasters, Denver is pretty interesting. We also had some very interesting comments from Mark Zuckerberg that just casually talked about his underground tunnels here, as a lot of the elites have them. A lot of the elites also have a lot of interesting safe havens in places like Chile and in New Zealand. Why there? Why, top secret compounds, underground compounds in Hawaii? Well, before getting into that and the doomsday scenarios that the government is preparing for, we wanted to tell you about wearechange.shop, one of the best shops out there. I think we still have a few of the Mother's Day gift boxes available. Great deal, by the way. You get a lot of great products available to you, and you give the gift of health to your loved ones. But one of the ones that I take every day now is, and again, I fluctuate based on my blood test results, based on how I'm feeling. I don't always religiously take everything nonstop, and I think it's always important to give your body a break here and try to get things from natural sources. But it's very difficult to try to get good fish oil. Why? Lots of fish filled with heavy toxic metals like mercury. And when you eat a lot of fish nowadays, it's horrifying. Specifically when you look at the parasites, when you look at the mercury. And I'm like, yeah, my genetic predisposition is to really, really thrive off of fish. I was always kind of born and raised, and my whole genetic lineage is by an ocean city, and my body thrives off of fish. But then again, I don't want those huge fish. That's why we created essential fatty made from small fish that are not filled with the toxins that all the other big fishes usually are. And you can get it here in this handy little bottle. I take it every day. You can see it. Look, I take it. You can see it's almost gone here. It's on my desk here. And I just personally like to take it with every lunch that I have after every lunch meal. As of course, now we also just found out a new study that is linking omega-3 supplements, fish oil supplements, to enhance strength gains by up to 78%. Yes, you heard that correctly. A new study has found that combining omega-3 supplementation with resistance training leads to up to 78% greater strength gains compared to training alone. While the placebo group saw modest improvements, the omega-3 group experienced a statistically stronger effect on maximum strength, confirming a clear advantage with the two combined. This isn't hype. It's measurable biological enhancement. One of the most surprising findings was that these strength gains occurred without any significant increase in muscle mass. In other words, omega-3 improved functional strength, not just size. Researchers point to two key mechanisms: reduced inflammation from omega-3s, while accelerates recovery and adaptation, and enhanced neuromuscular signaling. This suggests strength can be neurologically optimized without adding bulk. Omega-3 isn't just a heart healthy, it's strength enhancing when paired with proper training. And I definitely recommend. I always say, hey, supplements are great. There's a lot of things that are going to be probably very difficult in our lives coming up soon. I mean, that's just the way life is. But when it comes to, solar minimums, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. When it comes to polar shifts. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You never know what's coming your way, and the strongest will survive. I like to be the strongest that I possibly can, and that's why I take Essential Fatty from wearechange.shop. Also, smokers, significant, very fascinating studies with smoking and taking omega-3s. Look into it. Do your own research. But again, you want to be healthy? Work out. Go to the gym. Go for works. Prioritize your sleep. Try to get rid of stress in your life. Try to eat a good, healthy diet. I would love to eat more fish, but I don't want the poison. But that's why I just rely on Essential Fatty myself. Get it right now. Wearechange.shop and support your own independent health journey. It's a must get for your own personal development. Now, let's continue on with this very fascinating conversation here because there's so much to unravel. There's so much to unpack here. As, of course, Tucker Carlson was talking about his own experiences talking to contractors that he found out were actually working on a lot of these underground facilities in Washington, D.C. itself.
By vehicle. I thought that was, I was like, really? He goes, oh, yeah, no, I installed it. I know. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy that in the middle of this big city where I lived I was on Constitution Avenue every day, that you could build something like that without me knowing it. Under the VP's house at the Naval Observatory, same thing. I think most people know that. Next to my brother's house on Macomb Street in D.C. But that's, I always thought that was like preparation for nuclear war. Like, I didn't really think about it that much.
Some of it is, it's preparation for catastrophe.
Yeah, and catastrophe throughout recorded human history does happen a lot. Now, what I found interesting about this particular interview is that the two, right before this topic of talking about underground cities, then they got into breakthrough energy, which is another interesting topic. Hopefully we have more time to get into ourselves here. But they discussed how there's a high likelihood that there's going to be solar minimums, which is exactly the opposite of what the liberals and woke Democrats and Al Gore's of the world and Greta Thunberg's of the world are warning about. They're saying it's going to get too hot. No, actually, it looks like it's going to be not hot enough, as there's already specific private companies out there connected and linked to Bill Gates trying to deflect the sun away from the Earth and trying to make the temperature of the Earth lower, as people are saying. There's going to be some significant changes with the sun that will already affect that and affect human life on Earth in very negative ways. So that is some very interesting discussions here, as of course one of the biggest cheerleaders for the woke liberal democratic agenda is Mark Zuckerberg, who also has his own tunnels. You know, the billionaires have their own tunnels. The government connected super rich people, they'll know exactly where to go. They'll be safe. They'll be fine. Solar minimums. Oh, chaos. Oh, nuclear war. Oh, the other devastation of pole shifts. Oh, well, they got their underground cities. They'll be fine.
I don't even know what I would have. I would have an underground tunnel, even that it came right back up next to where it started.
I do have an underground tunnel.
Do you really?
Yeah.
In USA?
I have this ranch in Kauai, where there's this whole thing where people were like, there's this whole meme about how people are saying I built this like bunker underground. It's like more of underground storage type situation. But yeah, no, it's
Oh, wow. Zucky got that bunky. What's under the ground is just more water, right?
It's basically what you just said. It's sort of a tunnel that just goes to another building.
Yeah, it's nothing here. Just a tunnel. As Wired has this article here, Mark Zuckerberg's top secret Hawaii compound, as he is building a sprawling $100 million compound. Again, not everyone could afford such a big underground bunker, but what is he preparing for? Will there be mass flooding? Will there be solar minimums? Will there be pole shifts? I think all of that is quite possible, especially in our lifetimes right now. And we have to understand here that this is something that is of significance, especially when it comes to the potential of a nuclear war, when it comes to biological weapons that could be released out there to the general public. As now, and I kind of want to skip this topic in order to talk about another aspect of this interview, and that was free energy, which I thought was very fascinating, which I think is also important to talk about here because, again, there are many leaps and bounds technologically, and I do believe a lot of those technological advancements are being kept away from the general public in order to, of course, have the consolidation of power from governments. Now, the government would be absolutely irresponsible if they actually didn't have huge underground cities and bunkers. Now, they can't really tell everyone about it because if they do, if there is a national event, a lot of people are going to be like, you better put me in that bunker. But there's also a question about where's my money going? Okay. All right. I'm having a hard time here surviving off of you devaluing the dollar and my purchasing power while you're playing Bob the Builder in underground cities and underwater cities that we don't even know about. We should at least know about it. It would be cool. Hell, let's do a lottery system. Apocalypse happens. You get it and you don't. What are you going to do? But there is an argument to be made for national security. But for me personally, I would love a little bit more accountability and transparency. As of course, we're going to be the plebs that are going to be left out of it. Let's just be real with ourselves because we're going to be left out of the bunkers. I want to know. Yo, you're taking my money to... Hold on here. Let's make this a little bit more equitable. Okay? All right. Can we do that? All right. And can we have a more honest discussion about our capabilities? Can you give us a fighting chance here instead of keeping us in the dark and keeping us outside the bunkers? Could you help us maybe, release some of this brilliant free energy on this world here that could allow us to propel humanity forward so all of us are prepared instead of just you guys? Can you stop being selfish here for just a little bit? And I think that's the biggest kind of conversation that I think we need to have this. But this is the conversation that they had about free energy, which I thought was also very important.
But you believe that there's a whole constellation of underground bases built by the U.S. government in the United States. Like that fact alone, just the physical infrastructure of it, because normally talk about what are they doing?
It's enormously expensive.
What's unbelievable. And like it raises lots of practical questions. How do you ventilate them? What about food and water supply?
Where's the energy? Are we using breakthrough energy or?
Where's the energy come from?
Right. Because I'm sure that we have the ability to produce breakthrough energy at very low cost. If you go back
Why
and
are you
start
sure of that?
My Dutch partners, I met because they were doing a series of conferences on breakthrough energy. And they brought together breakthrough energy inventors from around the world. And, you can see all the videos up on the internet and really went through the history from Tesla on of different inventors who have discovered and claimed different innovations with breakthrough energy.
Yep. That's a real conversation that I think is absolutely worth having. The whole conversation was pretty great here. We're going to try to link it down in the description below here, but they got into a lot of the important stuff regarding central banks approaching extinction events, which I think is something that should be on our purview. I don't think we should. I think we should be taking seriously and having more of a national conversation. I think more than ever under Trump's leadership, we could actually get more disclosures than we ever have before. So far, the Epstein stuff has been a little bit disappointing, but beyond that, I think it's fair to assume we're definitely under new political leadership that is more decentralized and more considerate of the American people than ever before. And I think that's a fair assumption to make here under this Trump administration that, to me, has been doing a way better job than previous administrations. But the U.S. government absolutely has secret underground bases all around the United States. It would be irresponsible for them not to have it, especially with the threats that are happening against humanity. There should be some kind of I forgot the exact fail-safe. Excuse me. There we go. There should be some kind of fail-safe here to help us during times of tragedies. I just personally wish that we knew exactly what was going on here in a more kind of decentralized way, and that humanity would be given a fair chance to actually prepare for oncoming emergencies instead of just being kept in the dark about them. Because when we do look at these scenarios, the government makes the argument, they're panicked. We can't. I'd rather panic and know the truth and be able to accept my faith rather than be surprised by it. And I think a lot of people aren't having the right conversations. I think the conversations have been bastardized. I think the conversations have been inverted from reality. Almost everything we see on national television, on the corporate media, and the trends that social media tries to shove down our throats and minds psychologically here are absolutely the complete inversion of reality. They talk about male masculinity and how it's toxic. I've seen some social media posts here that highlight there's a lot of toxic femininity out there. Okay, when we look at people who initiate I'm deviating here, but the race issues. Whoa! Don't get into that one. We could deviate here, particularly the war issues, the violence issues. Yeah, we could deviate quite significantly here. But the Earth's getting too hot. Is that? Is it really? Is that what we got? We got to black out the sun. Is that going to solve our? Yeah, sure. Again, does the U.S. government have secret energy sources? Probably, and they're keeping it to themselves. I don't think that's a good thing, but there would be vast changes to our society. And I think the way our society is right now, I think we need definitely more transparency than ever. There's a global depopulation plan. I absolutely agree with that. There's a housing market crash and crisis happening right now because of BlackRock buying up essentially everything. There's trillions of dollars missing. We're in huge perpetual debt. There's global money laundering, and all those things were discussed in this particular interview. And it's definitely a worthwhile interview to kind of sit back, watch, and understand. Yeah, our reality is completely different than what we are being told it is. Get the supplements at wearechange.shop. We appreciate you guys doing that, supporting this independent media network. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys watching and supporting this broadcast through your help, support, and participation. And this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here, all exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.